The adjustment of status application, also known as the I-485, allows someone who's inside the United States to adjust from their status. So whether if they entered legally here in the United States, they've come under a certain category, and that category gives them a certain status, then they have certain obligations and rights within the United States. So people that are here on H-1B, they can file for an adjustment of status to get a green card, and that allows them to avoid returning to their home country and waiting for consular processing. They can file concurrently, meaning they can file for their green card along with a work permit and a travel permit, and we see those processing times kind of shortening right now. I'm sure we'll go over the processing times a little bit later, but you can get it's a fast way to get your work permit as well. And then of course you get access to a green card, which allows you to live and work permanently in the United States anywhere that you choose. Today we're talking about the H-1B and specialty occupation workers, including scientists, engineers, computer programmers. The EB-5 program allows for a person on H-1B to file a concurrent filing while they're here within the United States to apply for their green card. And that's a huge benefit. And as we see right now in this current political environment, that there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of volatility. So if you want something that has more certainty, people that are on H-1B, we highly recommend that you look at, and if you have the means, look at filing for concurrent adjustment of status through an EB-5 regional center such as EB-5AN. As we mentioned, the first thing you should do, and this isn't just me saying this is if you went to EB-5AN as well, they'd recommend you do this, is you should speak to an immigration attorney, because you want to make sure that you meet the criteria for an EB-5, that your source of funds are going to be able to be traced properly, and an immigration attorney is going to help you to do that. Once you have selected your immigration attorney, the next, which could take maybe approximately, a month, depending on your due diligence, choosing a professional attorney. After that, you'll want to select a regional center and a project. Typically, our clients that we work with, when they're doing their due diligence on a project, might take approximately up to 2 months. And that includes, looking at all the project materials, which EB-5AN is one of those regional centers that is very transparent with all their project documents. And we really are fortunate to be able to work with them with a company that is so transparent. So once you pick your project and you make the investment, you then need to start doing and preparing your source of funds and to file your petition. That whole length of time from selecting your immigration attorney, doing your due diligence through source of funds can take approximately around 3 months. It depends on how complicated the source of funds is, though. As we mentioned before, one of the huge benefits is that they can apply for an EAD, Employment Authorization Document, and once that's approved, they can then work anywhere in the United States that they're eligible. They no longer have to be tied to their specific sponsoring employer. And I'll give you just one example, a recent example, and a very unfortunate example of a client that we were working with. He was working at Oracle for 15 years as a software engineer, and Oracle ended up laying him off early last year or late last year. And he had been in the country for 15 years in Silicon Valley. Had a family, raised a family here, had a home, had many different assets. And he was literally on the brink of having to return to a country that he hadn't been to in many, many years, almost more than 20 years. and it was very frightening and very scary for him and his family. And they were looking at the EB-5. So if he would have applied for that sooner and he would have had his EAD, he would have had the flexibility to go out and look in the workforce to get that job that he needed, rather than be restricted by the H-1B, and then when they laid him off, he only had a 60-day grace period to find a job. Whereas if you have this EAD, there is no grace period anymore. So I think that's something that, you know, H-1B holders really have to think about. That's a huge benefit, that you have the flexibility to work anywhere in the United States, and you know, and you get the other benefits as well, as banking. You'll get housing. You can, you know, get your social security number, which allows you to build credit here in the United States. And the second application that you would file for as well is your travel permit, and that allows you to then travel outside of the United States and return without abandoning your green card application. So we have many clients as well that want to travel back home to visit with a loved one. Something might be happening in their life, you know, where someone gets ill and they need to go back and visit, and that gives them the benefit to do that, and they can feel an assurance that they'll be able to re-enter the country lawfully, and have their green card application continue to process.
And one thing I want to highlight here is just looking at these statistics on the left-hand side here. It's basically 5 to 1. So 5 times as many investors have gotten their approvals in rural projects compared to urban. So it's really a significant difference if we look at just what priority processing under rural really means. You're essentially 5 times more likely to get your approval, you know, generally speaking, when looking at these numbers. And when we look at our own almost 800 green card application approvals in rural projects, we're seeing a fastening and increasing kind of processing time. You know, in the last 6-7 months, we've seen processing, you know, 80% of our investors are getting approved in about 8 to 11 months who select a rural project. So pretty compelling to get approval within a year, and then, you know, just a few months after that for the interview, fingerprints, and then actually getting the physical green card. So it really is happening quickly.